Welcome to your Daily 5 for Thursday, March 27th, 2025. All right, today's 5, I'm just going to tell you right now, this is a test 5. This is purely to see if the volume on this particular episode is where it should be. I have been for, I guess now 20 years or so. I don't really know when it, well, no, I know that's not the case. The volume has gone all over the place. But in recent years, I have really just kind of struggled to get the volume of this show right, because I know there was a stretch of time where it was way too loud and it was clipping. Then there were other times where Lando and I had different volume levels, and I feel like that problem has largely been solved. But I've been really struggling to figure out, because depending on how I listen to, and let me just be upfront about this. I don't have what would be considered a really professional podcasting setup. I don't think I've ever made a secret of that. That's just the reality of it. I'm not using, what is that audio interface? You know, the big one, the big with like the 3 prongs that people use. XLR. I don't have an XLR interface. I'm using a USB mic, a good one. So the clarity's great, but I'm just feeding it into a computer. I'm not using any kind of hardware in between to do any type of leveling or gauging or any of that stuff on this. So it's all done by ear. And honestly, my biggest fear has been being too loud and clipping. And so I always default to what's apparently is, from what I've been told, too low. A friend of the show, Ant Pruitt, said this recently on his podcast. He said, yeah, your volume is really low, and actually demonstrated it because he played something I had sent him and then immediately played something from his soundboard that was about 40 times louder because he'd had to crank my volume up. So he actually made a concrete suggestion that I'm going to use on this show. He said to set the export to be about minus 16 LUFS, L-U-F-S. Now, I have never, in anything I've looked at, come across that. And I guess that means I was looking in the wrong places or I wasn't searching properly. But I looked, and sure enough, Audacity does have an export feature that does allow you to set a number for LUFS. And so I'm going to attempt that with this show. So there's really no topic for this one. My original topic for today's 5, I'm going to save for next week because I want to get some feedback from a few people just to make sure I'm not completely out in the fringes on this. Because I think if I have a little bit of data for my opinion on something, it's going to make for a stronger show. And in case I'm completely wrong, I don't want to make a dunce of myself without actually, asking people who would have a more relevant opinion on things. And I'll just leave it at that. So I thought, okay, well then, I'll just use today's 5 as a way to test out whether this makes the volume better. So I would appreciate any and all feedback, in particular on this show. Now, I'm recording this the same way I record every other 5. Now, that's not the same as how I record our Friday shows. So I will attempt this based on the feedback. I'll probably try it for the next Friday show and see if it makes a major difference, because, nobody has said anything in quite a while as far as any of the technical quality of the shows until Ant commented on it during his show, which I appreciate, because I know that I default to lower because I don't want to hit that ceiling and start clipping the audio. To me, that seems worse than being too low. But at the same time, I don't want people to be listening to the 5s and then suddenly get their ears blasted out because they have to adjust the volume. I assume there is a relative industry standard to this stuff, although even that seems murky from what I've looked at. So I just want to have a volume that is, I've heard some shows that are really loud to my ear. I don't want to be that, because I feel like my voice really loud will just make people not want to listen any more than they do now. So this is really just a test. I'm just going to test this out and see how it works. And hopefully, assuming that the export through Audacity works properly and that number is appropriate for us, and you can basically tell me, because I sort of understand now what LUFS are. I'd never even come across the term, but from my understanding, it's a percentage of volume that it normalizes everything to. I think that's the way that it was, that if I understood that explanation correctly, and that makes some sense to me. But also, if this works, then I can apply it to some of the late night double features where I feel like even me listening, the volume is way too low. So this is really just a test 5. Please let me know in whatever avenues you communicate whether the volume on this particular show seems better than the ones that had come before. I would appreciate it, and hopefully it means better shows for you to listen to in the future. Later.